come back on topic, the only reason I brought that up is because if you have experienced players in your pool, in your network, they're going to tell you historically this is how these cards have worked in different games, and that insight is going to help you prepare. So coming to the next subject, we want to talk a little bit about testing, how when we're talking about the game, how when we are actually in games, how we communicate with each other. So what I would love to do is I would love to have somebody talk about how they think the average stereotypical group of friends, how they test, how the stereotypical team plays. And then I want somebody else to talk about how our approach is different than that. Does anybody want to talk on the former?
Yeah, sure. So when people are doing a testing team, from what I've noticed, whether if it's from not necessarily experiences where I've been on the team myself, but it's basically one of my best friends, his name is Thomas Ingle. And the way that he actually participates in testing is actually pretty funny. So it's number one, he does a lot of observing. So he does a lot of just watching games and only taking in data that way, not exactly interjecting himself into games, and starting to get conversation flowing around the game state or what's cards in hand or trying to get knowledge. He just watches games to see how they play out, and then he'll draw an assumption based off of what he sees, and then they'll have a conversation afterward based off of that. But it's nothing that's super in-depth into the game itself. And then additionally, I know that a lot of testing teams probably don't communicate on a daily basis. It's more so just about hey, we're going to locals tonight, you want to meet up and play some games. And then they jam games without a purpose, without a mission, without trying to discover something, without trying to get all the information out there, without trying to find the truth per se. And so that's how a lot of actually testing teams work out from, previous experience, as well as one of my best friends who I work with as well on the game itself. That's just the way he absorbs, testing. And that's how a lot of people do.
Yeah, well, one thing I want to say, because I know Rich is also plays some fighting games, but at least from the people I play fighting games with, or I have played fighting games with in the past, the mantra that we always have is the only way to get better at the game is by playing the game. And card games have that extra layer of you have to play with intent. I mean, fighting games, I guess, as well. You could say hey, in this round, I'm going to try to win without this move, or find a way to set up this thing. It's basically those 2 points. You have to play the game to get better. If you're not playing it and you're just watching it, or you're just passively absorbing it through, watching us. Yes, we're giving you insight, but if you're not going to apply it and sit down and actually think about these things while in an actual game, it's not going to help you.
So within learning psychology, there are two main paradigms. There is rote memorization, and there is constructivism. Rote memorization is you're in class, you're learning this content, you're taking a test. You get exposed to the information again and again and again, and you create rules and ideas and random factoids that you can regurgitate. And that's fantastic for something like school. But I don't know about you, but I've never taken a test on DBS.
No.
Constructivism is this idea of, okay, I'm going to have this experience, I'm going to reflect upon the experience, and I'm going to change my ideas on the world. I'm going to change my views based on those experiences. Now, in certain situations, just jamming out games is 100% acceptable. Like Welch, I know. So once you had the concept of the blue yellow storm deck down, you just had to fine tune how did you use this to win consistently, right? And what you did is you kind of had, I like to think of the 80-20 rule. So 80% of the time, what are you going to do in these situations? Your initial goal, once you decide your deck, should be to figure out, okay, how do I handle the situations I'm going to see almost every game? Once you have those ideas down and your main concept, then it's the what do I do in these very specific nuanced situations that are going to come down 1 in 1,000 times. I remember at ARG Philly, whenever I top 32'd, time ended at the end of game 2. And I went into game 3 not knowing that sudden death was 2 turns. I thought it was 3 turns. So when I went first using my SS3 deck and I used my ability, and I almost shot myself in the face out of a top 16, that's something that could have been avoided by grinding out tournament games, by grinding out online games. Luckily, the other player made the same mistake, and it worked out well. But in those situations, I think grinding out games is fantastic. Well, you're dying over there, aren't you?
Just let
Yeah.
I remember everybody
I didn't know that happened. I'm sorry.
everybody was like, when he did it, I didn't watch it because I was playing my own game, but like I heard about it after the fact. I was like, why?
Yeah.
He's lucky he's so good.
Right. But so in those situations, that's fine. But the first step is to come up with your major paradigm, and that comes down to reflecting and talking about the game. So Matt, do you want to maybe talk? Okay, so you have this deck idea. You think that this is a tier 1 concept, but you don't know how to fully flesh that out. Tell me a little bit about the kind of conversations you're having before, during, and after a game.
So before the game, what I actually do, and you guys are aware because I write up deck lists like constantly, and so if it's like an idea that I have, like I'll take like the first initial list, and the first initial list I'll send to you guys is something that's just like pure. And when I say pure, I mean it's like straight up and down, like 4 cards, 4 cards, 4 cards, ending with like 2 or ending with 3/3, and then I talk about the concept that I'm trying to push in the deck itself. So I'm trying to push this particular card. And then so when I do that and I put it out there and I put it out there to you guys then start breaking down the different things that go into the format and the things I need to take into account, whether it be changing ratio rounds to put tech in, right? So then when we start doing that with the first initial list, we haven't even played games yet, but we're just discussing how this lines up with the rules of engagement that we talked about.
Yeah,
for the
like
current
it's like,
format.
does it hit an obvious wall?
Correct. So then once we do that and once we like flesh that out a bit, we then take it to playing games. And so when we're playing games, like we're talking about optimal opening hands. Like what do I need a mulligan for in this particular matchup? Say I'm playing against like blue yellow Hurdigarn and I'm playing blue yellow SS3 control. Like I'm like I need to mull for Sensu Beans and or Nimbus. Like, and that's the kind of thing that I do. Like, and so once we go from there, once we start actually playing the game, we have spectator mode on. So Zapp, Welch, whoever is spectating can look at my hand, and then we start talking about just minute details throughout the game. Like, oh, I think you should charge this here. And then it's like, well, I don't think I should charge this because this is the line of play that I'm thinking about right now. And then that person then gets the opportunity to say, well, I actually don't think that that's correct because of this certain card that exists in the format. And then from there, we're then breaking it down on such a granular level, and we do that intermittently throughout the game. And so once we do that,
we even go back. That's also important.
We do.
We do it a lot, especially like with
to
Rich
see a different line.
Yeah, Rich and I do that constantly. Where Rich will make the play, he'll get punished for it and be like, "All right, now what would it look like if I had done this?"
Correct.
What if I charged Kefla and played hit instead of charge hit and played Kefla?
Correct.
Like that kind of
and
stuff.
And that's how
so
you figure out that usually most of the time hit's the better choice because from seeing it from both perspectives that hit usually pays out more often.
Mm-hmm. And then from there we do something like just like we continue playing the game. We go over the different scenarios that are coming up throughout the course of the game, and then a lot of the times after the game, I can talk about like which card I saw too much. Like I thought that this card was actually great in this matchup, but I saw it way too often. So I was playing it at 4. I probably need to trim it back to 3. And then, like, again, we just get into those really granular conversations that are just super just detail-oriented about everything, whether if it's, like, a certain play I made. Like, shoot, the video I put up on YouTube about playing blue-yellow Hurdigarn, like, damn well I got a message from Chris Welch saying, like, why'd you do that on turn 1? And then I explained my thought process, and then like, we both came to the conclusion that though it wasn't the best line of play, I was justified in making the play. But then Zapp chimes in and then adds another layer on top of it, actually, after we have the conversation. And then again, it's like, I have to then reiterate, like, hey, trust me, going back and watching it, I don't think it was the optimal play, but this is my justification in doing so. Yeah. But then, again, you have to be open enough and get rid of the ego. Like, that's something I say a lot in our group is, right. There is no ego. Like, that has to be removed completely. Like,
no matter how stupid the suggestion is,
correct.
It's still a valid suggestion.
Yeah.
Right.
Once you get rid of the ego, like, you're going to be able to do so much better because it's like, I mean, of course, I gave Zapp shit for it because I was like, because I'm going to do that. That's just my personality. But in general, like, you have to cut the ego out of it when you're having these conversations and just, like, be prepared for someone to be right. Like, and then be prepared to make sure that you're intelligent enough to justify your decision. Like, and that's one thing too that's about these conversations is like, it's not just one person going, you're wrong. It's somebody going, well, I don't necessarily think I'm not necessarily thinking that I'm wrong. Like, this is the reasoning why I'm putting behind this. And then it becomes a full on conversation about just something that's as simple as charging the Kefla versus the hit, like,
Yeah.
in the specific situation that popped up in a game.
And we'll talk a little bit about individual strengths and weaknesses. My favorite part about interacting with Welch is when he is confident on an opinion, he is a iron wall. And I love you for that. And it's not in an egotistical way, but what it allows is, so if I say I believe that red yellow SS3 is the best deck in the game, I know that Welch is going to tell me no, and he's going to tell me no until I can prove him otherwise. And it's not that my goal is to prove him wrong, but it's that if I can't come up with enough arguments to defend my point, he's helped educate me that I have the wrong paradigm and that I need to change.
Yeah.
One of the things you were talking about on that, and Welch, I'll give you a chance to chime on this, is when you're in the middle of a game and I go, oh, Matt, should you charge that? Or is that the order? I think you should actually swap your order. I'm actually giving your opponent, let's say your opponent's Welch right now, I'm giving him information that's going to help him win that game. Welch, do you think that that's okay? Is there any pro or con to that? Like, what's the downside to helping you beat him in the middle of a practice game?
It's important to, I would say, take all that away. Sometimes it's best to even play with your hands revealed to your opponent. Mm-hmm. Because yes, this game is about incomplete information, and by opening up that information, you're making it now complete information. There's always an optimal line of play. Okay. However, opening up, whether or not I'm talking to Matt, let's say I'm playing Matt here, and I want to talk to him about my line of play, and it's just me and him right now. So I'll show him my hand, say, okay, what do you think the best line of play is, and why do you think it's the best line of play? And I think it's good to talk to people about that so you can get an idea of other people's mindset and what they're taking into consideration in a match and what they find and what they value as important in the match. So sometimes just by opening up that and talking to them about that, I think it's you flesh out different lines of play, or maybe there's lines of play you wouldn't have seen. Now, do I think it's a problem when you guys are testing? Say there's a third person in the mix. Now I'm playing against Matt, and you're helping Matt decide what he wants to do. I do think that you will give away information. Again, this is a game of incomplete information. But I don't think that's a problem. And I don't think that's a problem because we run these scenarios over and over and over, and these are common situations that will come up over and over and over the course of a tournament. So, yeah, I don't think it's a problem whatsoever.
Yeah, just an example.
Practice.
Yeah, just an example of how it actually works for us is, so remember you guys remember, I posted an article and it was a picture of essentially a scenario that was drawn up, and it was red blue SS3 versus red blue SS3, and it was essentially just a line of play to take to get access to the most amount of information possible, deplete their board state, but also maintain your card advantage over the opponent. That was a real scenario that happened with me and Pat, and we were either playtesting against Zapp or Welch, I don't remember, but Pat was trying to figure out how to sculpt his turn because Pat had an Oath of Power Trunks, and we were trying to figure out how to just reverse the game in our favor. And so I'm working with Pat on this entire turn. And we're trying to just focus on the goals we lay out, which, like I said, deplete their board state, draw as many cards as possible, and just in general, gain as much information about the game as possible. We ended up seeing a Sensu Bean. We ended up seeing a Legic. And all this is stuff that it didn't matter. The opponent couldn't control. We just knew that this was the best line of play. So there's some instances with DBS, since everything is so predictable and everyone just knows the card pool, that even if the opponent does get that information about what you're doing, it's not a lot of times they can do something about it. So, but in general, that was just a good conversation because the person that was playing against Pat also just got to see the line of play as well. And then just okay, well, maybe I would have never thought of that, or maybe I should have.
Now they're more prepared for this matchup in the future because of that. Yeah,
exactly. Or maybe I should have protected myself better on my turn, because I didn't take into account the cards that they could play on their turn, and I only just thought about
something I want to interject about ARG Philly again. So, Fu Shrouded and Mystery was a card that everybody sideboarded at the event, but we knew from testing and from experience that really isn't worth the sideboard slot because if you die to Fu, you put yourself there. There was literally something that you could have done that stopped you from dying to that Fu.
You're gonna die to you would have died to anything.
The point is it's I topoed too early in the turn, so I could not defend the scientist Fu 2 turns ago that I didn't know he would have or whatever, or like he had this card, he had like a 1-drop Kaba that I was not aware of and didn't leave the cards in hand to be able to protect myself against it. So because I took that Kaba 2 turns ago, the Fu Shrouded in Mystery was lethal. And somebody like, I'm not going to say at what point in the tournament, but I watched a game that was decided by Fu, and the guy who lost it was like, oh, my opponent got lucky. And I'm sitting here going, no, you lost because you took that double strike 3 turns ago because you topoed too early. You just haven't put 2 and 2 together yet. And, likely they probably still to this point have not figured out that's why they lost.
Correct.
To come back to the original point about giving other players information in the middle of a practice game, Bonchus actually said it best in the chat when he says, winning and testing is the least important thing ever. Mm-hmm. And that's really the takeaway from this. If you are sitting there and you're worried about winning or losing a game in which your goal for the game is to prepare for a larger event, as Matt just mentioned earlier, you're letting your ego get in the way. And that is something that you need to overcome to be a better player. And in addition to that, even when you are playing the fairly competitive, I'm going to keep my hand to myself, you keep your hand to yourself, let's see who wins, it is important to recognize when you should have won, when you made the correct decisions, and you lost anyway. Like, the incident that's going to forever live in my mind is I was playing against Marcel Russell in top 4 of the Friday Gen Con event that I did well in. And I make the play. It involves using a Sensu Bean and then playing a Fu, Scientist Fu, and going for lethal. And within the 22 cards in my deck, I had 2 Legendary Flutes and 1 Wiss's Coercion. And if I drew any combo card, 0-5 or 1-10, I won game 3, and I go to Grand Finals against Peter Catani, who I beat in Swiss. And I drew 2 Legendary Flutes off that Scientist Fu.
Yeah.
And I lost the game because of it. And don't get me wrong, I was sad and I was frustrated about it, but I realized that in 98% of, or it was like 99.1, I actually did the math, 99.1% of the time, I won that game.
You were winning the game.
Yeah. You made the correct play.
Well, yeah, I made a lot of mistakes against Danny, but like even I realized the one play at the very end of game 2, literally I just needed to not draw a dead card off.
I actually wrote an article about this exact thing.
Yeah.
Called the perfect play versus the optimal play.
Correct.
Okay, this exact thing. Okay, basically, because this game is a game of incomplete information, there is always a perfect play, but you never really know what it is. So all you can take is the optimal line. And what you did, Richard, was you picked the optimal line and it didn't work out. But in reality, you took the highest winning percentage shot.
Probability is knowing how to calculate. Probably like you don't have to be precise, but knowing roughly your chances of something at any given moment in a game is something, for both you and your opponent, you should be aware of.
Exactly. And you can read that article on shinronslair.com.
I'm sure there will be a link to it in the description.
Dude, it reminds me of when I played San Jose. I was playing against Blue Yellow SS3 Apes, and he was playing 12 negates main deck, like 4 Nimbus, 4 Whis Coercion, 4 Mafuba. I'm not lying. And game 1, I grind about. But me, like, instead of siding and battering lasers, I play Fu Shrouded in Mystery because I'm an axe murderer. I side in both Fu Shrouded and Mysteries, and it's coming down to the wire. Yeah. And all I'm doing is, I'm playing the game building a kill board because I know that I have this magical card in my deck that is going to win me the game once I get there. So in order to figure this out, I play a planet the turn before because I only had 5 energy at the time. So I play a planet because I want to search my deck. And so I'm searching my deck for just something to combo with. But at the same time, I'm also looking to see how many copies of Fu Shrouded Mystery in the deck because my deck's getting low. There's only 1 in the deck. There's 1 in my life. I only have 2 life. And so no, I actually did this all in the same turn because I had a Sensu Bean. So I had 6 energy. I plan it to see what's in there because I had the Sensu Bean. I swing with one of my battle cards, and I bean to rip one of my 2 life. It is a 50-50 shot, and if I rip it, I win the game. I rip it out of my life and windmill slam it, and he immediately extends the hand. Immediately, he shows me his hand is all negates and boost attack Piccolos.
Wow.
Game, but again, that's trying to make the highest percent. That was my highest percent chance of winning that game in time because his deck was taking way too long to do anything.
Yes.
And you realize 50% of the time you gave yourself the loss instead of the draw.
Correct. Yeah.
But you knew 50% of the time you won the game unconditionally.
Exactly. No matter what, that was going to be the play that would give me the best chance of winning the game right then in time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So because there's a couple more topics I want to hit on before we go to the Q&A, does everybody want to share maybe one thing about going back to the idea of in-game testing, either in real life or when you're testing online? One factoid, one suggestion you would give somebody that asked the question, how do I improve the quality of my testing? Pat, do you want to start? I have one if you don't.
Go ahead. Yeah, Pat. Go ahead.
Okay. So what was it? That's a good question.
You guys suck.
Better than Swallow.
Sometimes. Sometimes I just need you to open your mouth. That's fine.
These are the conversations that break the meta, okay?
Dude, I am format warping. Tier 0, please nerf, dude. Like,
real talk while you guys are thinking about this, it is very important within your interactions to not just grind out DBS talk nonstop, but to also not do a whole bunch of, giggly, random, completely irrelevant things. Like, a lot of the reason that we work well is because we can just shoot the breeze for hours on end about not DBS. But we also know that if somebody seriously needs some feedback or they want an idea fleshed out, they can ask them. We create an environment of openness where people can talk about whatever they want, and because of that, it's active. One of the downsides of having a larger group, like if this podcast was to have 15 people, not only would a lot of people not have an opportunity to say anything, but after a while of seeing people not be active and not be engaged, it demotivates those players that do have insight and want to share it from sharing, because then they feel like they're not, they're doing more than their fair share, or that other people are taking advantage of the opportunity. And by having a small, intimate group and being transparent, it creates a more effective, more successful environment. But yeah, did anybody have any other things they want to interject?
Well, I mean, again, from just playing other games competitively, not necessarily card games, but like one thing I'm always looking for is, and you'll get to this point eventually as you become more familiar with your deck and what things are in the meta, and then even further playing other people and know their play styles. You can usually recognize, like once you get more familiar, you can usually recognize when something is off or when your opponent misplays, and so it's in that point, like when you recognize that something isn't going quite right, like they didn't hit on 4, you should have already set yourself up to be in a position to capitalize on it. And it's important to know when you're advantaged, or like when you've hit a spike and your opponent has not hit a spike, in the actual game. I don't know if that's like exactly the easiest topic to follow up or to understand, I should say.
Yeah, I think that's helpful. The original point I wanted to bring up is I have found a lot of people, they feel that their testing is ineffective because people don't give a lot of input or they give short answers. And to that I say, instead of taking an external locus of control and saying, the people I surround myself with, they don't help me learn more about the game. Take an internal locus of control.
Also, you should also not be afraid to ask questions about why the game came out that way. Like, ask people what they think. Like, why did you make this play? Why do you think I lost? And like, they should be able to give you some kind of answer. Like, you should just there's no such thing as a bad question. Like, period. Just if you're like, just honestly ask and converse with the person you're playing with, that you're testing with. Like, why did things turn out this way?
Yeah. And to add on to that, asking open-ended questions is the best way to get people that aren't good at being engaged. Like, there's so many groups I'm a part of where somebody posts this list of 50 cards, and there's 3 people that say, "Oh, it looks good. Sick list, man." Um,
Yeah,
To-
they
to-
wouldn't
to
take
you-
the list
Yeah,
to a tournament
what's
the
good
way
about
it is, but yeah, it's great. Yeah.
right. So to the people that have had those situations, my suggestion to you is ask more open-ended questions instead of does this deck look good? Ask, do you think this deck can win this matchup game one more than 50% of the time? Do you think this deck has a good matchup against deck A and deck B? Do you think that my ratios of card X, card Y, card Z make sense? If not, why? Asking close-ended questions that they can respond with yes, no, sounds good, looks good. That's not going to help you, but if you put them in a situation where they have to give you a more long-winded response, you're going to gain more insight. So that's my
you'll just see
suggestion.
the scene by,
Mm-hmm.
and then just nothing.
And then depression sets in.
No, but yeah, you again just ask questions. Just keep asking questions. Just keep trying to find ways to absorb more knowledge.
Exactly. So I'm going to start opening up the Q&A, and we'll start answering questions in the chat in the next couple minutes if people want to start loading questions. But in the meantime, Welch, Matt, do either of you have anything you wanted to add in regards to advice to people that are struggling within their playtesting group to get Steam, to how to improve the quality of conversation, improve the quality of testing?
This is something that Matt does that I do as well. That I notice, maybe not a lot of my teammates in the past have done, and that is when you have a deck idea or you have some sort of a concept you want to test. Where do you start? Do you start by talking to a buddy about it or one of your teammates? For me and for Matt especially, we both write deck lists, and we're constantly writing deck lists. We have an idea, we're just going to create a deck list, and then we're going to shoot that deck list. Like he mentioned this earlier, but version 1 deck lists where they're just super pure, and this is the concept I want. How do we break the concept? This is the 50 that I would, sleeve up right now and test. And we would just constantly create a deck list, send it to each other, and then we'll talk about it, and then we refine it, and then we resend the deck list. We will over and over until we have this theoried out deck list that we want to test. We have an idea of how the games are going to go, et cetera, et cetera. This is all pure theory at this point, but we take that to our testing, and it's essentially almost a refined list without actually refining it. Is that through testing? Does that make sense? So what I recommend to other teams or other players who are having trouble with deck concepts or testing, write down deck lists. I do it on I have a notes app in my phone, so I'm just constantly writing out deck lists. I write, or I start out with 4 super combo. Okay, it doesn't matter. Essentially you write out the deck list, get that in your mind. For me, maybe it's just because it's helped me writing things down throughout my life to memorize them. So writing a deck list, having an idea, sending it to a friend, talking to about it, try to create discussion amongst your team, and just start by writing deck lists.
Yeah, that's a really good point. My thing is more so just like a broad topic. If you are a part of a team or a group of people, I think everyone needs to have an honest conversation about what their goals are. And I think this is where a lot of times things get lost in translation, is because you have 2 people on a team that are really driven, and you have 2 people that really want to produce really great results and break the format, and like they want to keep testing and testing. But then you have 2 to 3 other people who all just want to BS and all just want to have fun, and you find yourselves doing a lot of the work for them, and then like it just ends up creating a bad relationship, and you're not getting the full value that you want out of your testing team. You need to make sure that you come to the table when you all have your goals aligned, and you all need to make like, you need to just like, hey, like this is what we want to do. Like Pat wanted to get a top. He wanted to get his first top. Zapp wanted to continue to perform well and take his performance to the next level.
I wanted to win.
Yeah, Welch wanted to break the format and win an event. Yeah, and then myself, I just wanted to start putting up results that I knew that I could generate. Like I had so many people around me saying like, yeah, you're probably one of the best people in the game, but you just need to start winning things. Like, and so me, I just wanted to get the monkey off my back. And so like we all just had our goals, we all aligned, and then we all just worked in a fashion through effective communication, persistency, consistency, and then that's how we came up with the recipe for success.
Yeah, like right now,
absolutely.
I don't know like 100% where everyone's goals are right now, because like there's like a downtime in terms of events, but like I mean, at least for me, I'm starting to think of, okay, what can I do in World Tournament? Like, give me the toy. Give me the toy so that I can figure out how to break it.
Honestly, this is probably one of the reasons why this team is so good. Is that when a new set drops, like we are on it. like
Definitely.
I wake
Cards-
up, I literally look at my phone and be like, oh, it's like 7 o'clock or whatever, and Matt's like,
correct.
oh, these
38 comments.
These 3 blue cards are broken, and I'll be like, actually, like I'll literally like not have my glasses on and like still have like the cobwebs, just be like, actually, Vegeta is really good.
Dude, Pan and Champa.
Yeah.
A big thing about teams, it's very important to have aligning goals, but it's also very important to have a diverse group
Yes,
who have different strengths to bring to the table.
we're not all white males.
Well,
Wait,
In our late 20s and early 30s.
Yeah. So, yeah.
you speak for yourself, buddy.
I got no.
Yeah, no.
I can't.
Oh man.
I'm done with you
No,
guys.
to add to Matt's point, not only setting goals when it comes to individual and team movement, where they are, where they want to be, that's an important conversation to have anytime you're talking about a list. Like, as much as Pat can go day one, oh, the Legendary Flute looks like a really broken card. It's super fun. And he was right. It is super fun for the person playing Legendary Flute, hands down.
Oh, don't forget swap. Don't forget swap. Rich was like, Pat, what do you think of swap? It's either really broken or does nothing. Fun fact, it does both.
It does both of those things.
Dude, Mecha Swaps was lit for like a day.
It's still lit. Just saying.
Dude, I love Mecha Swaps.
But just as much as we have that conversation, I will tag Matt in a comment at 7:30 in the morning saying, "Look, this new 6-cost Jiren is so thick."
Dude, the thickest.
But we're able to have
You
this
want
conversation. Right, but stop breaking me.
That's
But,
my phrase, man. You gotta want it.
But no, we realize when we have a conversation, we say, okay, so if our goal is to make a really fun deck using this engine, versus saying our goal is to see how competitive we can make this card, how competitive we can make this engine, versus how do we make a deck that we're confident can earn us a Q, versus what kind of deck involves us, gives us the best chance of winning the event. Those are all completely different decks, and they might even look similar, but the reasons can be completely different. If somebody tells me that they want to take this green blue Gotenks deck to their regional, the first thing I'm going to ask them is, what is their goal?
Mm-hmm.
And if they reply, well, my goal is to do as well as I can with a Gotenks leader deck, I'm not.
Or a Zamasu deck.
We're gonna build off that, exactly. But if they tell me their
yeah.
goal is to win the event, I'm going to ask them, why do you think Gotenks later is capable of winning the event? And if they give me a good answer, then I'm going to come up with a counter argument, and we're going to have the conversation until they come to the realization that maybe their theory is bad, or if they're so confident in it, then I'm going to help them flesh out that theory as much as possible. And those are the kind of transparent conversations you need to have. And sometimes they're hard, but if you're transparent while still being friendly, and you're coming from a place of, I just want to help you achieve your goals, it always goes over well. That's why all the conversations in this group come over well. But you need to be transparent with them.
Yeah.